Good evening, everyone. It is a glorious moment to extend my warm wishes on behalf of the Wings of Aero. I want to convey my heartfelt gratitude to Ms. Abhipsa Acharya, PhD at Jan Kochanski University, Kailas, Poland, for accepting the invitation and presiding over the seminar on structure and working of TPCS of NA61 Shine experiment. The webinar was organized and conducted by Wings of Aero for the science and engineering students to gain insight and information that would remain effective in their research and project. I will give the session to Ms. Abhipsa Acharya. Ma'am?
Yeah, thank you so much
Yeah.
for inviting me today. So uh, I will start. Let me share my screen.
Yes, ma'am, you can start the session.
Yeah.
You can start.
Do you see my screen? Can you see my slide?
No, ma'am, we can't.
Just a minute.
No, ma'am, we can't. Yes, ma'am. Yes, you can continue.
Do you see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So I'm Abhipsa Acharya. I'm basically from India, and I'm doing my PhD in Jan Kochanowski University in a city called Kielce in Poland. I'm doing my research from CERN. I'm in the experiment NA61 sign. Today I'll be giving the talk on structure and operation of time projection chambers in NA61 experiment at CERN. So I guess you must be hearing about CERN. What is CERN? This is the European Organization for Nuclear Research, and our experiment is one of the experiments that are being conducted in CERN. So here, what I'm going to talk today is about the time projection chambers in our experiment. Those are the detectors. We detect the particles. So in this picture, you can see a guy. There is a box on his top. This is actually a detector. So I'll be talking about this in some time. So let's move on. Before going into details, I would like to say something about our experiment. Our experiment is located at CERN North area where the S2 beamline is present. We'll explain that. Our experiment is the second largest non-LHC experiment at CERN. That means there are a couple of experiments that are going on from this LHC from this Large Hadron Collider, but our experiment is the non-LHC experiment. It is a fixed target experiment. That means we have a fixed target, and the beam is coming and it gets collided with the target, and we get the particles. About 140 physicists from 15 countries and 28 institutions work in our experiment. The main goals of our experiment are we study the heavy ion physics to study the QGP. QGP is the quark-gluon plasma. So we try to make artificially the quark-gluon plasma by the collision we do in our experiment. We try to study the hadron production measurement for neutron experiment as well as cosmic ray experiment. So in case you don't know what is a hadron, so for particles are divided into two types, leptons and hadrons. Hadrons are heavy particles, leptons are light particles. Electron, mu and neutrino, these are categorized under leptons. Hadrons are further divided into mesons and baryons. So in terms of quark content, meson contains one quark, one antiquark, and baryon contains three quarks. And these are some examples of mesons and baryons. So we mostly deal with these hadrons. That means we mostly deal with these particles. Okay. So this is what we study. Now this is the location of our experiment. This red box where you see the large circle is the LHC, the Large Hadron Collider ring. It is about 27 kilometer. So there are a couple of, like I said, there are a couple of experiments that those are being conducted. Like this is LSCB, here LSC. There is a CMS here. Another experiment, Alice. There is Atlas. So these are LHC experiments, but our experiment is here, which is a non-LHC experiment. We take the beam from this position, and the beams goes long way from here to here through this SPS. SPS is the super proton synchrotron. So we take the beams from this SPS. So our experiment, that's why known as the SPS heavy ion and neutrino experiment. That means sign. We call our experiment is sign, and it is placed at the north area. This is the north area of CERN. So at the north area, that's why we call it north area 61st experiment. So our experiment known as 61 NA61 sign experiment. Um, Now this is the schematic layout of CERN machines relevant for NA61 sign ion and proton beam. We call these accelerators machines. So there are like a couple of machines in CERN, for example LFC, SPS, and so on. How will we get the beams? So these are the sources. For example, this is the proton source. This is the lead ion source, like you see. So for proton, from the sources, it goes through the linear accelerator. The linac is present here. It goes to the linear accelerator, then it gets boosted by this proton synchrotron, and then it goes through this. This is the proton synchrotron booster. Then it goes to the proton synchrotron, and then it goes from here to here and travels in this super proton synchrotron, and then to our experiment through this line. This line is called H2 beam line. So we get our beams from this S2 beam line. Similarly, for ions, the source is here and it gets to this linear accelerator. Instead of it going to this booster, it goes to the low energy ion ring and it gets boosted here, and then it continues in the same path. It goes to the proton synchrotron and then to the super proton synchrotron and then to our experiment. So this is how we get our beams. You can see there is a small part of LSC here. So this is the north area. Okay. Now the experimental setup. So I just said the beam comes from here, and I said that it's a fixed target experiment. So our target is being placed here, beam comes and it collides with the target and the particles are produced, and we study the particles. So how we study the particles? We have the detectors to study the particles. These red boxes are the detectors. We call them time projection chamber, the topic of the discussion. So these are the time projection chambers, the detectors. The first two detectors are known as vortex time projection chambers or Vertex-TPCs. That means we get the vortex of the particles from this detectors. These detectors are surrounded by superconducting magnets. The first vortex detector has a magnetic field of 1.5 Tesla. The second vortex TPC has a magnetic field of 1.1 Tesla. These magnetic fields are here to bend the particle so that it come to this main TPCs. These are the main TPCs. So there are the vortex TPCs, then there are the main TPCs. This is the left, this is the right. And then there is a time of flight detector. This calculates the time of the particle from its origin. So from this vortex TPCs and main TPCs, we get the charge, mass, and momentum of the particle. And from this time of flight detector, we get the time of flight of this particle. And then there is a projectile spectator detector, which detects the spectators. Spectators are those particles which do not interact with other particles, or they don't contribute to the interaction. So they just come straight to this detector, and the detector detects the particles. This is overall the experimental side. You can see there is a guy standing here, so you can imagine how big and large it is compared to a man. Next, coming to the structure of our experiment. This is the beam comes from this side. So here the beam comes here, and then there is a target standing in front of this. Then there are the TPCs. You saw those red boxes, here are the blue boxes. This is the TPCs. We have 8 large TPCs. These are this BTPC, gap TPC, BTPC. I mean, this is BTPC, gap TPC, BTPC. This is forward TPC. These are main TPCs. These are also forward TPCs. And then the projectile spectator detector. And there are vortex magnets surrounding these TPCs. So the beam goes like this. There are also some vertex detectors, the scintillators, and beam position detectors. All of them are arranged in such a way so that we can get the precise and accurate value of these particle properties. In the bottom there you can see a plot that shows an example of pi minus and carbon interaction at 158 GeV. So this the track of the particle is shown like this. Okay. Now this TPC is filled with a working medium, that is a gas. We mostly use argon gas in our experiments, so that the particle comes when the particle collides with the charged particles are produced. So these charged particles interact with this gas and they ionize the gases so that the electron comes out, and there are a readout plane on the top of the TPC. The electrons toss the readout plane and we get the coordinate of these particles. So this is how we detect the particles and their properties. Now, this is the working principle of TPC. So we have we have an electric field given to that TPCs. We have a magnetic field and we have a given electric field. So we can have the drift velocity. The gray matter inside this box is the gas. So the primary particle comes and it ionizes the gas. The electron comes out of this gas, and then there is a multi-wire proportional chamber. In the next slide, I'll show you. This multi-wire proportional chamber helps for further ionization. So the secondary ionization goes in, and for that there is an avalanche of electron happens, and from that the particles go to the readout plane, and readout plane catches the coordinates of these particles, and it gets the coordinate. So, and because of this magnetic field, the particles track is bent towards the horizontal plane. So this is how the working principle of TPCs. Now, like I said, this is for the signal generation in a multi-wire proportional chamber with padrow readout. So the electrons touch the padrow plane. It is upside down. The picture is upside down. Suppose the particle comes in this charged particle comes in this track, and it gets ionized. So you see here this how it happens. So since the anode is here and the electron goes off, now the electron is released from the particle, and the ion gets tossed to the readout planes, and the readout plane reads its coordinate. It usually reads the x coordinate and the z coordinate, because we have the x and we have the z, the length of this TPC, the height of the TPC. So we have the x and z coordinate. Now the charge location is the projection of coordinate of this track. This signals on readout plane is sampled. Also, you see there is a lot of rows there. These are divided into a lot of rows. Why these rows are present? These are present to increase the statistics. More the statistics, more will be the accuracy. So to get more accurate values of this charge and mass and stuff, we have divided this readout plane to a lot of pads. So this is how this works. Now this is an overview of the Vertex-TPC, the first TPC that is surrounded by magnets. This is how it looks like. This is the box that we put the TPC from the top, so it comes to inside this box. These are Miller strips. These strips provide electric field. We give electric field from this side, so it gives the electric field. And in this place, the beam pipe is present that takes the beams inside it. So this is how the beam pipe is. It is made up of ceramic rod and coated with titanium layer. Titanium layer is to prevent corrosion. And this is how the box looks like. There is a gas box, then there is a filled case that is put inside it, and then there is a support plate. This is the readout plate. So this is the overview of the TPCs. Now this is before the beam pipe, how it looks like. These are the strips, you can see. These are the strips. And this is after the beam pipe. being inserted. Now the main TPCs, these also work the same as Vertex-TPCs. This is the main TPC filled cage, and this is inside TPC. These strips and the gas is that we put the gas inside this box. Okay, now this is the NA61 TPCs overview. So we have the Vertex-TPCs, Vertex-TPC2, main TPC left and right, and there is a gap TPC. There is a gap and we put a TPC there. So this is known as the gap TPC. And these are the size, number of pads, pad size, drift length, drift velocity, drift field, drift voltage, gas mixture that we use in different ratios, number of sectors, number of pad rows, and number of pads. So everything is listed here. Main-TPC is larger, so it has a larger size, more number of pads, more number of pad size, and so on. So this is all about the TPCs. Now, how we do the measurements? We have the x and z coordinates. As I said, the readout plane catches the coordinate of this particle. So we have the x and z coordinate from the projection of coordinate tracks at the readout plane. So we have to calculate the vertical component. So the vertical component y is calculated from this formula, where y0 is the position of the readout plane, vd is the drift velocity. We have given an electric field, so we know the drift velocity, and there is the time that we calculate from the time of light chamber. Now we get the x, y, and z coordinate. So this because of this, I said that the particle interacts with the gas, and the particle ionizes the glass. So because of this particle's ionization, the particle loses energy, which is expressed as this mean energy function. So the TPC can measure the energy loss in form of the dEdx, and it allows to identify the mass and momentum of the particle. So you can see this mean energy function is a function of g square. G is the charge of the particle, and beta square, this is the velocity of the particle. So we get the charge and velocity of the particle. Now this main energy is a function of charge and particle velocity, like I said. Now having the velocity and momentum, we can calculate the particle mass. So for momentum, this formula, this is a magnetic field. B is the magnetic field, rho is the Larmor radius, that is the radius of particle moving around the magnetic field, and q is the charge. So we get the momentum. Now the particle of different mass m and same momentum have different velocity, right? So beta equal to p by mc. So we can get the mass of this particle. We have the momentum, we have the velocity, and this is the c, is the light's velocity. So we get the mass of the particle, right? So we get the position, the charge, the momentum, and the mass of the particle. So this is how we measure in TPC. This is an example of how we this is an example of this mean energy loss function. So this plot specifies the energy loss in these TPCs. For positive, this side is a positive and this side is a negatively charged particles, as a function of momentum measured for proton-proton interaction at 80 GeV. These curves, they show the parameterization of mean dEdx calculated for different particle species. So these all curves that you can see. For example, this is for electron and this is for positron, and so on. So this is how we see the particles. Now, so summarizing everything, our experiment is a multi-purpose facility to study the hadron production in hadron proton, hadron nucleus, and nucleus-nucleus collisions at CERN SPS. The main detectors of NA61 sign are 8 large volume tracking detectors, the TPCs that I described. These detectors are allowed to measure precisely particles' momenta, charge, and mass. So from this we get the properties of this particle. This plot is a this is a plot from the event browser that shows the tracks of these particles. So these are the TPCs. So that's it for now. Thank you. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, questions, comments.
Students have any questions? Any participant have any doubt?
So it seems like no questions. So everybody understood everything. That's nice. Um, yeah, thank you. So thank you so much for this invitation. Uh, I wish for your bright future and yeah, thank you.
Ma'am, can you hear my voice? Ma'am, can you hear my
Yeah,
voice?
I can now.
Sure, Acharya. Participants, you can get the participants after finishing lecture feedback. Thank you.